up, everyone? Today's video might be maybe the most important video I've ever done. Maybe for you if this pertains to you. And I honestly don't know why I haven't made this video before. It's the number one reason people lose fish, in my opinion. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I've seen it. I've witnessed it. I've had an issue with it over time. It's why I'm always redefining my rods. I'm always trying to find the best rod. It took a long time over the years to kind of figure out where the problem lies, right? Now, once I kind of figured out where the problem lies, then I had to like kind of compare it with others. And that's what I started seeing, okay? I've fished, I don't know what the number is. I think it's like 140 events with FLW. That means, and granted, a lot of those are Costa, Toyota events, stuff like that. Probably 40 of them are that, 50 of them. So some of those are 2-day events, 3-day events where I was having multiple co-anglers. So we're talking, let's just say minimum 175 co-anglers in my boat. Not to mention the Bassmaster Opens. I mean, we're talking 200 co-anglers I've probably had in my boat. And I've witnessed them from all ages, sizes. So it doesn't really matter. I've all seen them with the rod in their hand and what goes on. And some of them are fine, and others, well, what I see with them sometimes is what happens when things go wrong. Most of that is like when they lose fish. I can tell you the number one thing I see when they lose a fish, it's not them fighting it. It's the hook set. It's the hook set. And I'm not saying they're setting the hook wrong. It's kind of a two-part deal. Yes, they might be kind of setting the hook wrong only because it's the rod they're using, okay? And that's what we're gonna talk about today. You'll notice over the next couple of weeks, I'll probably be doing this after this video. I've got this whole deal on this new rod, okay? You see the cork on it, right? It's new. I mean, I've used it. It's got a little dirt on there in the sense of me using it. I've been working with Luz. We've been trying to get a rod that I think, I kind of had some rods over the years that have been like my bread and butter, right? And so working with Luz, they got me some prototypes. This is them. Still changed up some of the handle, like the way it fits in your hands, some things like that. But right now, I'm not even worried about any of that. All I'm worried about is just the actual rod blank, how it loads up, things like that. So we're going to go into that, right? A little bit about not necessarily this rod, but what I've witnessed and what I think I've seen over the years of why people lose fish. I've always been a guy who always tends to lead more to a bigger rod, right? A little bit heavier rod. There's a reason for that. And what's crazy is I'm not a small guy either. So I'm always looking for like power. I think power in the rod is essential. Now this isn't going to be about like shaky head stuff and little lighter stuff. This is more for just your regular like jig fishing, worm fishing, Carolina rig fishing, frog fishing, spinnerbait, all kinds of stuff like that. Like anything that swim jig, you know, things that you kind of have to set the hook on, right? So this is basically like cranking and all that stuff. You really don't set the hook. This is like you have to generate all the power and penetrate that fish's mouth with a hook. So back in the day, man, I remember rods were just rods, right? And I didn't really put a lot of thought into it. I mean, I just go in there, look at the rod and see like, you know, what it said. Is it heavy? Is it medium heavy? Things like that. I don't even pay attention to that anymore, guys, because everyone's preference is different. We got guys even on Luz, what they think is the right rod to worm fish, I wouldn't worm fish with, right? That's not a knock on anything. It's just a preference thing. But I will say this, when I watch sometimes the guys, especially in the back of my boat, and man, I've been on a lot of guide trips too, like I'll see them bow up fish, and I just see this rod just bend over, like I'm talking about really bend, and it moves a lot. Like when they're fighting the fish, like everything the fish does, like their rod's bending, which lets me know that it's moving that rod a lot. Like I don't really want my rod to move that much when I'm fighting it. Like it shouldn't be bending like crazy. There should be a bend, right? Let me explain that. What I mean by that is, like, you'll see when they're fighting a fish and their rod's bent, as they do that, right? Their rod bends and they're fighting it, and it's kind of going crazy. Okay, that's not really what I want when I'm fighting a fish with one of those, with a hook like that. Even with the spinnerbait, right? I want that perfect bend. Okay, like I want that bend like that. It's my job as a fisherman to keep that pressure like that. If it moves, see how the whole kind of rod bends with it at the same time. You don't see the tip moving. The whole rod bends at the same time. Well, if you notice from here to there, watch how it bends. The tip's not bending more, right? The tip's not bending more than the other part. It all bends fluid. Okay, when I pull on it, right? If you feel, if you take that spinnerbait in your hand, and when I'm pulling on it, you'll notice that there's the exact amount of pressure, like it loads up very smooth. Okay, that's important. That pressure, when I'm doing that, it loads very, very smooth. When I pull down, when I go up, it doesn't want to sling back. The rod doesn't want to like give more, and it's a pressure deal. You can feel it. I'm just telling you to like take a rod and you can feel that. You can feel that it's just a loaded pressure. If you watch a lot of guys when they're fighting fish, they do so much of movement, right? They're moving around. They're doing all these different things. They're kind of pumping their rod. They're doing that. Their rod was built to do everything for you. All you're supposed to do is keep pressure. The right rod, you never have to move. If you watch a lot of my videos, a lot of other people's videos, a lot of guys on TV, if you watch them, they're very still. They might move side to side and move the rod on which way they want the pressure, but they're not going to the fish or back from the fish. Once they start reeling, they let the rod do all the work, right? Because it's supposed to. They're designed to do that. Now, they're designed to do that if it's the right rod. What I have noticed is that people usually get too light of rod. Now, you got to understand what they're doing with that rod. I understand. I have tons of light rods. I just don't use those light rods when I'm doing anything where I'm going to set the hook hard, right? So like the jig, the worm, even the spinnerbait, guys. And they want to get these rods for some reason, and I'm not so sure why. When I look back, when I set the hook, there's a stopping point for me. Okay, and it's usually because everything comes to an end. Like I get here, my rod bows up, everything stretches, and that's it. That's my driving force, right? That's my end all to where that hook now is penetrated, and hopefully I've penetrated it enough. And remember, guys, you know, when you're using a jig and these things, we're not using a little bitty thin wire hook. We're using a bigger hook, so we need to generate that force into the fish's mouth. Now, this all sounds great and everyone's cool with that, and you can get by with a crankbait rod with a worm if you're catching a 2-pounder and everything goes right. Like everything goes right. I could set the hook and get a 2-pounder in. Man, I can get a 2-pounder in on a crappie rig. My philosophy is this: when I look at a setup, I'm basically looking at maybe what would happen if everything goes wrong. Because when everything goes right, you're gonna always land the fish. But let's say everything goes wrong. Say you don't get the best hook set, right? Say you're off balance a little bit. Say when you reel down to the fish, you didn't reel down all the way. Say instead of that fish being right out in the open, it's behind, you know, your line's draped over a twig, or something is in its way, so you don't get that full force, right? Say, you know, you got someone else in the boat and they kind of almost get in the way. Say it's a 10-pounder, because that's really what matters, guys. I'm not gonna lie. Like, don't we all care more about getting the 10-pounder in than the 2-pounder? I have my whole setup for everything, all the bad things that happen, right? All the things that happen that aren't perfect. because I'm always going to land the perfect fish. It's the ones that aren't. So I'll see guys out there and they have a rod that works pretty well, and then all of a sudden this big one hits and they don't get the good hook set, so they're trying to set it again twice and giving it slack, and then they're reeling it in and they're out of position and they're reeling real fast because that fish is taking off, and now their rod that was good for the 2-pounder, because the 2-pounder can't do what a 10-pounder does or a 6-pounder, now all of a sudden has all this flexion in the rod and there's no pressure being put on the fish and they lose it. That's what I'm talking about, guys. I don't know what it is about rods, and I don't know if it's like I hate dealing with rods with a lot of different people, in the sense of when I go to, say, iCast, right? And you walk around, or you walk around these shows, and some guy can't wait to give you this rod and say, feel it. Hey, pick it up, look how light it is. And I'm like, I don't care about how light it is. It's a rod, man. They're all light. Like, they're not heavy. Like, this isn't heavy. I can hold this all day. It's not a big deal. I don't care about that. I want to see how it performs. I don't care how light it is. I don't care about any of that stuff. I care if it breaks. But other than that, I really don't. I want to make sure it performs the right way and has the right bend, has the right generating power for that type of fishing. Like I said, we're talking about that type of, we're talking about setting the hook type fishing, anything where we're going to really drive that hook. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show a couple of fish catches that I catch with rods where you can see it's an all fluid hook set motion, how the rod loads up, how it bends, how it stays bent. Like, really pay attention to the hook set and when I fight the fish. Pay attention to that, because like I said, a lot of times when I've seen, I just see these rods that are bent over and there's a lot of movement. Try to do less movement, make the rod do all the work. Because here's what I figured out in fishing. It's a weird misconception, in my opinion, that, oh, you're gonna lose certain fish on doing certain things. Man, I a long time ago, I don't like that. I don't fall into that. I don't think you should lose a lot of fish ever on doing anything. If you do, I think there's a reason why. I think you can minimize all these things by possibly what rod you're doing, what hooks you're using, something, right? There's ways to minimize that. So if you're having a problem losing fish, I'm talking about, man, like, we'll go, in all honesty, I think in the last 6 or 7 tournaments, I don't think I've lost a fish. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not, hey, I should lose a fish every day. It's okay, it's normal. That's one of the things I always kind of laugh at people and tell people is that, man, everyone's always coming into the tournaments going, man, I lost this or I lost that. I almost feel bad sometimes, because I'm like, man, these guys are getting way more bites than me, right? But good thing I'm not losing any of them. I'm making it all work. So I kind of think that's a big deal. I think if you lose one less fish a tournament, or just in fishing in general, one less 10-pounder you're ever gonna lose. I'm probably going out tomorrow. I'm gonna go mess with this rod over the next couple of months and try to get it tuned in exactly the way I like it, and make sure, like I said, it might be perfect right now, but I got to do everything with it. Spinnerbait fish with it, worm fish with it, frog fish with it. I do a lot with that rod. So check it out.